This episode of the podcast is brought to you by our friends at Track Farms and their excellent CBD. Two things I love about this episode. We really get into some philosophy mixed with some serious jiu-jitsu and functional workout topics. It's amazing. And the funny thing is that both of those topics have something in common, and that is CBD. Because if you are working out and doing real functional workouts, that means that inflammation is going to be a big thing on your joints, and that's exactly what CBD helps with. And if you want to be relaxed enough to think about philosophy, you're going to need to get rid of that anxiety. Get some CBD. It'll help you with both of those things, and there is none other like Track Farms. So go to track-farms.com/strangers, enter the code strangers at checkout, and you're going to get my 15% off. Track-farms.com/strangers, enter the code strangers at checkout, and get you some CBD. Let's just get it going. Mike Sanda, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, what's going on? How's it going, Tyler?
Thanks for being here, man.
Tyler Hickson. That's actually easy to remember because it's like I do jiu-jitsu, and one of the most famous jiu-jitsu athletes that inspired everybody, including generation, including myself, is Hickson Gracie. So it's easy to remember.
Yeah, I like when people talk about Hickson and they're like, "Oh, Hickson's so amazing." It really gives me a good self-esteem boost.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, you just absorb it.
I'm awesome. Yeah,
yeah, names.
Right.
There's a lot of power in a name, man.
But unlike Hickson Gracie, I am very bad at jiu-jitsu, and not just even a newbie because I haven't even committed to being able to do it yet.
See, I would directly argue with that and say that you're amazing at jiu-jitsu. You just don't know it yet.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, because jiu-jitsu is one of the cool things about it is if you think about it, the word translated just means the gentle art. So anybody, whether they have very strong physicality or weak, it's performed gently. So even people that don't have those same capabilities, like those physical capabilities, can find ways to make it work because it's all based on leverage that everybody can do. It's because everybody's the same frame. We all come with the same frame out of the box.
That's awesome.
So everybody can do it. You just haven't tried it yet.
That's such a good way to look at it.
Yeah, man.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I should probably fill people in on where we are,
sure.
which is we're in Charleston.
Yes.
And for people who've been following the podcast, Andrea and I traveled from Tennessee. I think the last episode was in Knoxville, and now we've been in Charleston working this week. And I found Mike here because you post some awesome stuff on Instagram, just like I find everybody else went and was like, who's cool in Charleston?
Awesome.
And I got excited to do an episode. I've done one other episode, like I mentioned to you, with a jiu-jitsu professor in New Mexico. Shout out Jacob Benitez.
Awesome.
And I had just a great time talking with him about jiu-jitsu. I think I'm one of those guys that's like just on the edge and really like into it. And then, unfortunately, for my jiu-jitsu story, COVID hit right as I was like, oh, this is a really cool thing. I think I'll get into it. COVID.
Yeah.
And that's a little extra difficult with our lifestyle of traveling around because everybody's kind of doing a little different. I don't know that I really want to. It's like one thing to go to your gym at the place you're at and those guys and that's a tighter circle than me being like, I'm going to go to every gym everywhere all over the place.
Yeah.
It's a little shadier for me and for other people.
Yeah, it's already kind of a challenging thing to walk into a jiu-jitsu gym or any kind of martial arts gym in the beginning. It's like that's the hardest part in your journey. Like everybody goes on a journey and it's unique to their own, but like the hardest step is just getting into the gym. And if you compound that with just what's going on with the COVID stuff, it's just that much more challenging. So you still hang it on. That's the main thing. If your brain is sort of taking it in a little bit, it's always going to find its way back there. So it's like it's just a matter of time to probably find it at some point.
Yeah, and I feel like there's the cool thing about it, the gentle art, if you will. I like that. I'm going to start using that.
Definitely flow.
The cool thing is that I feel like I can train it by training myself in a lot of other ways. So I've always felt like, since I learned about it and I started to understand it, I was like, okay, well, if I'm training with kettlebells, if I'm doing a bunch of functional training, if I'm doing a bunch of yoga, if I'm getting more flexible, then I am training jiu-jitsu. Even if I'm not learning all the things I'd like to be learning at this exact moment.
You are, because it's like all of those things that you mentioned are part of the lifestyle of training jiu-jitsu, because it's trying to build up yourself in many different dimensions in terms of the physical, mental, and even spiritual. If you take it that far, if you adopt it as a lifestyle, that becomes part of it too. And so not only are you practicing the physical movement of the momentum when you swing a kettlebell, because you're eventually going to change that to moving a human in the same way. It's the same way. It all translates. Right. You're absorbing it all. Like there's every action is just as a drop. It's repercussions, like in lots of different ways that we don't even sense. So yeah, you're I'd say you're on your way, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and Andrea and I still practice when we can, although
Yeah.
she is much shorter than me.
Yeah.
And weighs a lot less than me. But we'll still play around. We've got some mats, and we'll mess around and try to remember the things we were taught in that one class we took. But I'm jumping the gun on all this.
Yeah.
Because I want to know kind of your story too. So
Sure.
like, I'd love to know how you got into this. I know you've got kind of an interesting career path to coming here. So tell us about how you started doing this, man.
Thanks. So how I started doing jiu-jitsu, I think I just started just like everybody else. I guess in my sort of age range, I guess you might call it. They got inspired by Royce Gracie, who started in the UFC. So like as we grew up, so I'm 43, I think. So born in 1977. So that's right around when you had all this like renaissance of like martial arts movies and all this stuff. Jean-Claude Van Damme, Bruce Lee, like kind of fueled a lot of that stuff.
Right.
And it was all out. And so we were just absorbing all of it, trying to figure out how do we get these mystical powers. And we're all experimenting, you know.
Yeah.
And so I'm like trying to do what looks the same, you know. Well, I tried doing Taekwondo for a little while because that's what got the kicks, because there's the sport aspect where you actually start kicking each other. I'm like, okay,
Right.
cool. That seems to be the closest replication of like what I'm taught, what I'm thinking of, and you know, that led to just lots of different experiences where it's like learning like what's going to work, what style is going to work for best for me, which included like getting my butt kicked sometimes, you know, trying out stuff, but that's okay. And then you ultimately find this style that's sort of so adaptable that it's like you just hang on because it just produced the best result when you were fighting. And that's what sort of Royce proved. So it's like it really allows you to sort of stick and be consistent with it because you have a strong belief in it. And then you start to learn more about it. You think about it, well, it's even in the name. It's called like Jiu Jitsu, which is like the gentle art, which is, so art is kind of limitless, you know, it just goes forever, and so it's an expression. So it's like a soft way to express yourself in fighting. So it's so versatile. It's all based on control, not necessarily striking and destroying. So, you know, and you compare that to Judo, which was a spawn of Jiu-Jitsu, which is the gentle way. So a guy named Jigoro Kano wanted to try to make this thing that was very kind of open and make it like into a way, which is a path, you know, and so it's just flexible in that way. You can kind of take it in lots of different directions. So your personality, your own style, like, and your own experiences will kind of develop how your style develops, you know. So it's just a great one. It's so flexible and effective too in terms of the way you fight. So yeah, it just I was hooked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long have you been doing it for then?
I've been doing it since 2002. So
about 18 years.
Yeah, 18 years. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome.
Thanks.
And then, but your former career, from what I read on your little bio on the site, there was you were in aviation, right?
Yes. So I was inspired early on by a lot of like what was American culture back then. It was like Transformers and like Macross and Robotech, all this stuff, jet fighters, all these kinds of stuff. So I played one of my first video games I got addicted to was the Red Baron, where it's like you had to make a character and try to plot like a career path like through World War I and try not to get killed by this Baron.
That's cool.
And so it's like eventually you get better and better and you
Right.
get better planes, and so you can match up against these guys in AI, and you get these kind of lessons early on, and then you learn, man, Bo equals dicta. Like they basically had methods to kill each other in the air, you know, and figuring out a strategy gives them the best leverage advantage in the air. And so it's like even back then you started trying to figure out like how everything's kind of related to each other, like how aviation can get related to jiu-jitsu and everything. But I think that's sort of what set the trajectory, you know, because aviation is very competitive too, and it's a skill that you sort of will try to master in sort of a gaming context, the same way you do with jiu-jitsu or anything else in life. So it's like you start to see the connectivity and stuff. But anyway, I'm sort of, you said jumping the gun earlier.
No,
I'm doing the same thing too.
It's interesting to hear you talk, man, because you and I think a lot of the same ways. I can feel that. Like you are absolutely a philosopher, like no doubt. Because and I have legitimate problems with this, and it drives my wife crazy because I could be talking about something on one level, and my problem is I will jump up 5 meta levels, and then I'm talking about it up there all of a
I have
sudden.
the same difficulty with my wife too sometimes. So it's like, yeah, definitely like reflection, you know.
Yeah.
We even have the same headsets almost, and my same microphones.
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah. No, it's just like, man, it's a legitimate problem for me sometimes because it's hard for me to discuss something on the actual level that I'm actually talking about, because I'm thinking 5 steps above that.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I end up in real deep philosophy stuff, and I'm like, all right, I don't even know what we're talking about anymore.
I think it's almost a skill in itself to be able to kind of, when you get that idea, to harness it and then be able to sort of like transmute it into something that's digestible to the person you're relating to, but it's like, man, it's like you fall off the log a lot. You know?
Yeah.
I do.
100%.
I do a lot.
Yeah, and then other people, I feel like I get jealous of people who really think about things on only the level that they're thinking about it on. Just this is the actual thing that's happening. But at the same time, that's not a very interesting podcast.
Yeah,
Like,
that's true.
I think that's why I'm drawn to podcasting, because podcasting is about how quickly can you go from the actual thing we're talking about to the philosophy that overrides it.
Yeah.
And that to me works. So that's why I do long podcasts.
Yeah,
of
man.
just this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, but this aviation.
Oh, yes.
What were you flying? Were you flying like commercial planes? Or?
Yeah, eventually I worked up to that. But so I started out just like you would normally, just in general aviation. So in this country, the aviation rules that govern the whole system are actually like very, very open, and it's like you just can go into a flight school and start training with a flight instructor that you're going to find around at the airport, and you just build up time, and you just pay the guy to take you up and build up time. And it originally started out as a hobby, just because I wanted to experience it, I wanted to try it out. And then I was sort of stagnating at my first job after college, which was working as a marketing coordinator for an electronics company. It's just basically like whatever you get after college. But
Sure.
this flying thing was something, man, I kind of had more passion to do. So
Yeah.
I quit that, and then packed up my ship and went over to Florida to do some full-time flight training with the goal to eventually instruct. And then kind of the way you would sort of climb the ranks to eventually be hired by the airline is you'd accumulate more and more hours in order to meet the minimum requirements for the airlines. And what governs that basically is liability. So you have to show a certain number of hours of experience in order for the airlines to be able to accept you as a candidate for like their training and stuff like that.
Okay.
So you basically just wind up flying for anybody and anything, take whatever jobs you can. Like you can tow banners, you can fly mail, you can do flight instruction, which was the bulk of my time. And then from there, you just get hired for whatever job.
Right.
And so from there, the airline I went to was called Cape Air. It was Hyannis Air Service Cape Air, based in Hyannis, Massachusetts. And they fly Cessna 402s, which is it's a Cessna business liner. It's like a 10-seat single engine. It was a single engine operation, so
Okay.
they would run it as like an airline. There's a lot of numbers I could throw at you that would have no meaning, but there's lots of different rules,
Yeah.
that govern the different stages,
Yeah.
So,
Were you
yeah.
flying famous people?
Yeah. Occasionally, I would periodically. They usually weren't. I mean, they were famous in the extent that what they were doing was important to them. But like as far as everybody else knowing who they were, I think I flew like Ted Danson one time, and I flew Chelsea Clinton one time when I was working out in Indiana. It was way back when Hillary was in the primary, when Hillary and Barack were head to head,
Oh,
in the
really?
Democratic primary. And so I was flying a lot of those guys around in Indiana because it was like really contentious in Indiana.
Oh, okay.
So I wound up taking them from Evansville to Indianapolis one day, and the weather was pretty bad. I don't know if Ted had such a good flight. His hair was white when he got off the flight, but I think it was white when he got on too, so maybe it was okay.
Yeah, man. Oh, I'm so glad to not be like flying as much anymore. Like, so part of the journey for Andrew and I to be traveling full time was that we were flying to all of our different clients, and we'd literally be on a trip every other week of our lives, and we were never home. We lived in Denver. We loved Denver, and I wasn't ever in Denver. Like, we were on a flight every other week, and I already don't love flying because I'm just like, it just will never make sense to me how we get a bus in the air. Like, it doesn't make any fucking sense to me. And so, but then combine that with the fact that I also love to cook, and so we're always just staying in hotels and like just not feeling good. We could never like really work out in the ways we want to. Like, it just wasn't right for us. But obviously this is so much better, and I don't know the next time I'll be on a flight, but I hope it's a long time.
We all have our like the things that are that we're trying to conquer out there, or sometimes we just let them go. We just let them down the river, if you can release it, it's just that much. It's an easier flow,
Right.
It's like more wu-wei approach, you don't have to climb every mountain, so that's the heck yeah.
Right, like pick the things that are hard for you, for sure, and do a lot of things that are hard for you, but then also you don't have to do everything that's hard for you.
No, exactly,
And traveling full-time in an RV is not like the easiest lifestyle. Like, that comes with its own real challenges. So
and that's funny that you mentioned that too, about the when you just choose it, because actually my wife just recently started doing surfing. And I see the relation and the connection of the skills and everything between jiu-jitsu and the surfing, just in terms of the balance and the flow and being able to sort of, and even just trying to something new, but I'm just so focused right now on like learning like this, like on learn, and a couple different other things too at the same time, like if I'm working on music or something else, or like how to like network better or things like this. And it's like for me to take on a new thing, like I just wouldn't have the bandwidth, it's like everything else would suffer. It's like everything that you do have has some kind of ripple effect. So if like I did that, like yeah, I would have some enjoyment of gaining that new skill set, but I'd also be cognizant of the time that I'm missing trying to improve in the areas where I need to meet the goals that I've set for myself. And it's all the time. It's all a time function of time. Like if it takes a little bit longer because I'm distracted. But then see, that's maybe not a good way to think about it, because maybe if I were to take that route, maybe it would allow me to kind of see it, jiu-jitsu or something else that I'm working on, in a different light, and then it would have more value in the long run. So it's hard to say.
Yeah, there's never one right answer to that question of like how many things should I half-ass at the same time, or should I just go full in on one thing? It's so hard to say, because sometimes, because you're right, it's like if you go full in on one thing, who's to say that that other thing wouldn't give you something that actually helps you do whatever the other thing is more fully? And I don't know, man. I think that we all, though, well, I don't know, maybe guys like you and me have a tendency probably to take on too many things at once. And so, like, it probably just depends on the person.
Yes.
Some people just need to, like, start cutting back and be like, all right, I definitely need to take on
I'm
less
glad
things.
we're talking about this, because I get hit by that a lot. You know, man, you got to focus. You got to, like, kind of apply yourself in a more focused way. And I would say that's probably where I need the most work in my life, is just to be able to apply more focus. I'd have more success in my individual endeavors, like one at a time, you know, if I were to do that. But I almost feel like just even through jiu-jitsu, like right away we learn about like the connectivity of things, like how things are so related. So it's like, for example, like I want to be good at the style that I practice most. We've been speaking loosely in terms of jiu-jitsu, but my main style is Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, which is to really try to, if we want to take the lessons that I initially learned from like the Gracies and stuff, which and the Hickson and these guys is to max out the leverage of each of these positions, you know. And so in doing so, you become more and more efficient, you know. And so we're playing for like overall defense, or overall grappling style that's versatile, and where you can kind of use less energy, but it's not necessarily explosive enough to like win a 3-minute match, you know, with a wrestler, if they're both aware of the rules and how to score points, you know. And so you're sort of always trying to find the connection between the core self-defense of the art and the sport aspect, and trying to relate that. But then even go a step removed from that. And so lately I've been training more judo, you know, which is like, yeah, if I go back to what I was saying originally, it's all jiu-jitsu, because but see, it's a perfect example. You say judo, and you take two different people, or take a different person, they would say, yeah, jiu-jitsu and judo are different thing.
Right.
But I can train judo, and suddenly, because it's like we start the jiu-jitsu match from our feet, like, and I can, as soon as you make that initial connection, you're already trying to get a reaction that will kind of dictate how your strategy goes.
Right.
And that's a connection. So they're the same. It's just that people decide with using names and language to put, for their own reasons, whatever it is, marketing or their own objectives, they wind up or maybe inadvertently separating things when they're more connected than you realize.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that we should sort of just keep whatever feels right. We just keep on doing it and not worry about. I'm not going to worry about it.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, you're defining too the definitions between these competitive sports that we've like set aside, that are like, here's the rules for this sport and the rules for this sport. Then the whole thing just sort of encompasses, like you said, like self-defense. I mean, and then so like, are you training the gi aspect, where it's all about like, I'm trying to fight within the rules of jiu-jitsu, and it's competition, and whose rules also, because I know that there's a few different sort of schools of rules.
Yeah.
And then, or are we talking about like, I want to make sure my family's safe if I end up in a street fight at some thing with some belligerent person? Like, it's all kind of the same, but also kind of not. I mean,
well, that actually is a really important one from a martial arts standpoint. I'm glad you brought it up, because that is one that's a perfect example of where people, I feel, almost like with intent, will try to make it more separate than it really is. Because when I was coming up, jiu-jitsu was all jiu-jitsu. It was Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and if you trained the gi or trained with didn't gi, the differences were very subtle. You know, you apply the same concepts in gi as you would in no gi. It's just, sure, you'd have to adjust your grips, and your strategies would have to change slightly, but ultimately it's the same thing. You're just wearing different clothes.
Right.
You know, but now with people coming out with events and these kinds of things, it's plastered up everywhere. Gi, no gi, no gi. So people are like saying, oh, look, they see the divide.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's all kind of the same, just with different grips, you know. Like I mean, if you were to make a direct comparison, like you could say that, well, the gi has more grips, and so it has more options, boom. So it's more like it's like comparing chess and checkers, because if you have more options and you've got more potential strategies, and also when you get those grips, because you can really connect in a very a solid way,
right.
then it's more final. You know, it's so the mistakes that you make in terms of getting those grips, there's more at stake with each interaction.
Because you can't slip away.
Yeah, as easily. So it's just a deeper game.
Yeah.
And I think that the attraction that people have towards the no-gi is that if they have a little strength and they have a little oomph, they can they can get further with it than with the gi, because with the gi you can use those extra leverages that you get to further make that connection closer with those people that are stronger than you. Using the leverage, you can keep the leverage more easily, so you can more easily use the leverage as a weapon against the guy.
Right.
You know, so that's sort of it. So it's sort of like a gentleman's game of leverage versus sort of the wrestler, where it's still a gentleman's game. Absolutely. I don't want to say that it's not, because it's all top level. We're just going through it. Again, I'm saying how it's all the same.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't want to pay those guys any disrespect.
Well, that's why people are so into mixed martial arts in the UFC. The idea of like, well, let's get an octagon, and let's say the only rules really are like for long-term safety of people. Like you can't strike someone in the back of the head or do some nasty stuff that might, end up really killing somebody.
Yeah.
And then we'll see what works. We'll see if it's the striking game comes out on top, or we'll see if wrestling comes out, or the jiu-jitsu. And I mean, that's what's so fascinating, especially, and that I think is why you can watch it so much. Like I'll watch so many fights just because it's fascinating to watch some guy come up and they're like, all right, well, this guy's got a wrestling background, or he's an Olympic wrestler. And then you've got the other guy who's got a real boxing background.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, let's put them together. Who kind of takes it? It's too exciting. And there's something so natural for us to be excited by watching that. Like it is the ultimate entertainment. It just is what it is.
Totally. I mean, the rules are so open. It's like, what other sport? It's like, okay, and there's another sport where it's on a green grass and you got to knock a ball into a hole like over there. And we all got to work in that rule set. But here's a sport where you're just going to go against each other and there's like no rules.
Right.
You know, basically, like if you were to compare those two, I mean, obviously, like you said, safety. But so that what that does is it allows for like just an insane amount of creativity on part of the practitioner, because it's like so wide open.
Right.
And so if anybody were to try to tell you that, oh, it's just fighting and it's just not martial art, well, it's the art of fighting.
Right.
So it's just art, expression. Like, what kind of fighter are you?
And you make so many assumptions. It's like when you watch the Conor McGregor Donald Cerrone fight, where he comes out and you expect him to start throwing punches, and all of a sudden he gets in the clinch and just starts throwing shoulders. Yeah. And you're like, where did that come from? And all of a sudden he's winning the fight. And that's it.
Disrupting the guy.
Exactly.
Getting some leverage on him. So it's all the principles.
And you just don't know. You just don't know. He could have been just working shoulders for months in advance. And he's like, all right, I'm just going to go out there with a shoulder. Yep. Or it could have just been this creative thing that's like, I feel like I could take my shoulder and hit you pretty hard. Yep. I'm just going to do that. And then that's why I feel like that's the other reason never to bet on an MMA fight. Like, never, because it's too unpredictable. There's nothing, like, you can never look at two guys and be like, oh, that guy's definitely going to win. No way.
I think it's one of those things where if you have access to enough information, you could sort of read it too. Like if you're sort of playing into not just like their styles and how the fighting styles match up, but like in terms of their preparation, like how much did this guy prepare? How is he training? Like is he going full steam for their normal strategy that they always try, or are they trying to adopt their strategy? Like what are they doing? Yeah. So if you just have enough information, you can start to sort of see the patterns and the bones, as it were. But because that aside, you don't know what they're planning. You don't know what they're planning. In their gyms and stuff. So you're totally right. That's what makes it exciting. You could just run at the guy and like throw a knee, and then all of a sudden like you've won in a few seconds. That happen. Right. So but see, that's the cool thing too. It's like if you train too much like a sport, you're like, okay, but if you always defend yourself. If you always hold self-defense, it's sort of like the top, and that's how they at least portrayed how they would do it, like back in Brazil and with the UFC and things like that. I know there was some good matchmaking there to help voice a little bit there, but if you always hold self-defense as like the highest virtue, then you'll always be able to at least defend yourself and make a fight. Right. And then from there, now you're playing the game. You're breathing, you're working, and you're seeing kind of where the avenues to kind of improve your situation are. Right. And that's the martial artist. Like that's where you're driving. Yeah. You're kind of driving the boat that doesn't want to be driven. They want to drive you right to the ground. So you've got to try to make it work out.
And you just never know what the other guy's going to do. Yeah. I mean,
hands up.
I feel like the other day I was watching some old Anderson Silva fight, and I forget who was fighting. Somebody's going to know. I don't know. Because I don't follow it that closely. Yeah. I'm kind of still new to it, but I'm watching this fight, And for 4.5 rounds, Anderson Silva's on the ground just getting his bell rung, just completely. He's on the bottom the whole time. It looks like he's got no shot. And then with like 2 minutes left in the final round, he gets the, I think he locks in a triangle. That's it.
Yes.
And it's like, that's all it took. He just had to stay alive for 4.5 rounds, and that was it.
That's really great that one came up, because this is kind of like one of the really valuable things that I see in jiu-jitsu, is that you might hear people say like, oh, jiu-jitsu is truth. Well, what the heck are they talking about when they say that? Okay, whatever, man, it's the truth. You put it on a poster. But it's sort of what it is the technique is so powerful, it's undeniable. Like, you can't deny it.
Yeah.
Like, so when you're getting hit and you're getting punched, like, you got to get, basically you're disrupting like the synovial fluid, like in your ears and stuff like that, and it creates sort of like a warble, and so you sort of.
I wouldn't really know. I actually have never been like full punched in the face.
You get rung, and so it's like you lose equilibrium, so it feels like you're spinning, and if you're not really prepared to receive it, you get hit a certain way, then it's like you'll lose consciousness or whatever. But you really gotta, if the guy's like moving at any point, like if he's moving back as he's getting hit, you're taking away the power of the punch. You really gotta get that timing perfectly. But with the jiu-jitsu, like if you line it up and you sync the technique, and you understand like the power of the technique, and then you understand how he's going to escape, then you can close off those avenues for him. And so when you catch it, as long as you're practicing your minding your opponent, like it's final. It's truth, and yeah, sure, that alone is powerful. Okay, but now I'm getting all excited here, because it's not just the fighting though. It's because when you practice, so if you're practicing something where they have that degree of truth like built into the practice, where it's like, I don't care what you think about yourself, like Flex in the Mirror, if you're Arnold Schwarzenegger, whoever the heck you are, you dressed up like as Conan the Barbarian, you think you can just slay people wherever you want. If you come in here, if the person's trained and you're not, then he's going to beat you, and that's true. And so it's like, and whereas like if they went into some other sport, they might be able to just grab the guy and squish him, but with the gi and everything, all those other things, just the way we practice, like we can say that there's truth in that. And so, okay, great, you love jiu-jitsu, great. But so what the final thing that I'm trying to get to is that when you practice something where the truth is so apparent, and I can go in lots of different ways how the practice is so valuable that's even more than that, then you start to see and compare what is true in all those other things that we're talking about before, like in all those other pursuits, that you can learn to find the truth in, like in some of the. In other words, you start to see the patterns, like the connectivity more, because even just like if you take for example, like if you take a small person and a big person and match them up, but then the other person has that knowledge and the other person does not, like they're the one that governs the outcome. So it's more about like the knowledge and having that knowledge of the truth.
Yeah.
So.
Well, yeah, there's truth. If someone might be able to throw like a great knockout punch, but if a jiu-jitsu practitioner knows how to manage space, you can't throw a knockout punch with an inch of room.
Yeah,
you just can't do that.
Neutralize it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like you're getting into metaphysics now.
Yes.
That's what I'm thinking of, because like one of my favorite writers of all time is Robert Pirsig. He wrote Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, and another book that is totally underrated called Lila, and he breaks down. Basically, I feel like what you're describing is the concept of objectivity. Like there is something that is objectively, what he would call it is like higher quality. There's something that is a higher quality than the other thing. And it comes time and time again. It seems like jiu-jitsu has that higher quality. It's completely undeniable that this thing is of a higher quality. I'm not describing it very well, but
I see what you mean, because just in terms of the practice, and so how do you get that higher quality? Like I'm learning how to play the like the banjo and the uke, and my friend is telling me the same thing. It's about like playing it as if it's perfect, and it will just, your brain will figure out how to do that.
Right.
But the thing that allows us to do that in jiu-jitsu that's so great is that I can safely try to make this more perfect, like sitting on if I'm playing an instrument or something, sitting on my porch and just doing that just alone by myself. And so that's kind of what you're talking about. But in terms of fighting, that's difficult to do, because we wind up trying to make our fighting perfect, and then we aren't able to practice as much as we would like, because we wind up either being in the hospital or hurting ourselves or hurting the other person.
Yeah.
Now that's why we're able to get to these high degrees of expertise in jiu-jitsu, because of the way we train. Because when we attack each other with all of the I guess you'd say options in the art, like it's all about making it soft and using pressure and leverage to control rather than destroy. And so we can practice like the fighting as if we would practice it in real life. And so it's like true. The format allowed the truth of it to be acceptable or digestible by the culture we live in. You know, it's like we can accept being a little bit sore, you know, and things like this, or maybe getting a black eye every once in a while or something like that, or maybe sore fingers or something. Like we accept that, and so and that's sort of like our bodies can handle that because we aren't smashing each other in the face.
Yeah, you can only take so many. Like you can only spar for real in boxing like a certain number of times, and your brain's gonna go.
Start to mess yourself up.
It's gonna go. But you can be put in a choke as many times as you want, and as long as you're not going out every single time, you're gonna be fine.
Right, the practice, you can protect yourself.
Yeah.
So and even like the when people talk about like the injuries and how hard it is in jiu-jitsu, like, and I believe this in also like just other stuff too. But if it's really hard, it's how you're receiving it. Like it's all up to you. You get to decide how hard it is because you actually we have more control. I have more control. We all have more control than we realize. Like in terms of how we receive it, like how we perceive it. So both. Like for example, like if you're coming in to train in jiu-jitsu and like you're getting your ass kicked, and you can continue to keep trying to smash up against that bulwark, and it will continue to be hard, and you'll continue to break. But if you start to soften and like sort of accept, okay, well, I'm in this crappy situation, what's the intelligent way to escape out of this? You'll start to learn, more stuff, and it'll be less wear on your body, and you'll be able to train as you get older and older and stuff like that, and you'll be able to match your jiu-jitsu up against people that have more and more leverage in terms of weight and these kinds of things. Like it's really somehow it worked out in the practice, and I've done, like I said, I've done judo too, and it's even that just throwing. I mean, it's a sport, so it's different. It's not, they don't have necessarily the philosophies built into it, but it's very hard picking the guy up and hitting him on the ground. But when we get in here, like on the mat where it's soft, we start low on the ground, so the leverage that you can put on each other is much less than if you were standing. Yeah. Because all the levers are shorter on the ground, and so you don't have that same kind of ability to turn the hips and produce power as if you're on the ground. So really, it's just a strategy to take the leverage out of it, so to make that gap smaller if you're going against an opponent who's much more powerful.
Do you feel like it's become an obsession for you, like jiu-jitsu, like something that you started and then you're like, I can't stop thinking about this?
Yeah, definitely because again of that connectivity with everything. So it's sort of like you're trying to perfect yourself in terms of, and at the same time as your martial arts, because of if you think of it as like holistically and not just a sport. Like sometimes people they get a little bit focused on the sport aspect of it, but by holistic I mean more complete, and by that I mean thinking of it in terms of the self-defense and also the sport also, because they have different applications, but just also as the art too, and realizing that it's like, even I can try to make this I can defend myself like perfectly and just get out of the situation by running the heck away as soon as I sense danger, but then I'm not practicing the art. Like I'm not like transmuting energy that's coming at me more and more. I'm not getting to practice that. And so you basically learn, and the more you can breathe and the more you can like accept and turn the angle and receive that energy and change it, like that I would consider the art of it. And so like just even coming into practice, like it's like, oh, you don't, for example, the way you would separate it, that it's like, if it's sport, be like, I got to kick that guy's ass, I got to get on top of him, I got to get my positions, I got to submit him. So that's that. But like, let's say if you're saying art, okay, well, maybe I want to roll with them and I don't want to break a sweat, or I don't want to breathe, I want to breathe only through my nose, or I want to kind of train with my eyes closed or something like that, while still managing the pressure, his attacks, and not getting tired, not expending any energy. Right. Just doing that, it's like the practice in itself, the fact that it's another human being, try to unwinding that at the same time. It's like trying to find peace in chaos. Right.
And it's a simulation.
Yeah.
It's a simulation. I mean, it's just like a good workout where it's like, all right, so I went out and I went on this run and I'm so tired, and then I come home and then I have to answer these emails and someone's being shitty to me today. Yeah. And I'm like, well, yeah, but I went on that run. Yeah. And I did that, and that was hard, and that sucked for a long time, but this kind of feels smaller now. Yeah, exactly. Everything else feels smaller when you kind of can simulate that sort of, I don't know, the pain in the ass of anything that's like a workout or rolling with someone. Yeah. It's like everything else looks easier. Yeah. That's a big part of it. So, all right. I love the way you talk, man.
Oh, thanks, man.
I'm really enjoying this conversation so far because it's you're jumping into levels, but also we're passing by so many things that I think are so crucial too.
Yeah, sure.
But how did you? So functional fitness, I feel like, is another big thing for you.
Yeah.
And I need to talk about music too.
Yeah,
You got a lot of things to talk about. But that functional training aspect, I've seen. You put videos out about pistol squats and lots of movement, kettlebells, things like that. Like, was jiu-jitsu the thing that got you into those things as well? It felt like you wanted to be better, so you wanted to train in ways that would help you be better.
They directly expose my weaknesses. So when I do that stuff, I'm not training the stuff that I know is already strong. I'm usually it's a reaction, but now lately as I'm older, I can kind of pre-train. But I'm trying to erase my weaknesses. So like if I'm training and I get injured, people are oh shucks, injured shit. But oh shoot. But it's really like an indication, where was I weak? Like where did I break? Okay, where do I need to fortify? And so now I can just basically go back and try to find exactly where it hurts and try to explore the movement like in that area to see what is structurally sound and what's just nerves pinching or something like that. Because a lot of the pains we feel, I feel like, are just imbalances in the way our skeletons can be, and if we sort of sit or maintain certain postures and develop imbalances in our muscles and these kinds of things, it can kind of pull everything out of line, and we have nerves running through this whole system that has to run by physical like bone and stuff like that. And so when you lose space in there, nerves get pinched, and so a lot of times you can alleviate that pressure just by either stretching the muscle or strengthening it like directly, and then you can basically make yourself pain-free. And that's the goal. My goal is not to make myself stronger by any measure of weights or numbers or anything like that, or even how high I can jump. It's like how do I feel? Like focusing on the feeling. Like if I feel no pain, boom, like that's rare. But then also like if I can get there, then it's like then I can worry about getting stronger. And then I'll have to get that directly from the training, like from information I would get from my training. Like did I run out of air when I was trying to like really hit the gun? Then I need to work on that. But it's always going to be able to give you an idea of like what you need to work on.
There's a mental aspect. There's a mental parallel to what you're talking about too, which is that a lot of people get like their thing that the workout they really like, the thing that works for them, and they only do that thing. Like some people like running really works for them, and so they only run, or lifting really works for them. And I've been that person in my life too. But at the same time, the workout that you're doing is hard, but it's not hard because it's the thing you actually kind of like to do. Yeah. And so when you are constantly mixing it up, it's a lot of things you don't like to do. Yeah. Like we were just in Michigan a little while ago, and I've resisted yoga for a really long time. I hated it my whole life. And I had a big fight with Andrew about it. I feel like now at this point in the podcast I've talked about how we fight, but we don't really fight that often. We're really good friends. But we had this big fight about it because I was so like angry. Like I tried it and I was like, I just fucking hate this. Like I hate everything about all that's like all the spiritual stuff and like heart center and all the names of the poses, and it feels like a club that I'm not in. I was so mad. And I tried it a couple times and I was like, I really started to realize this is a personal shortcoming. Like, I don't know why I'm resisting this so hard, because it'd be one thing if I was like, you know what, it just doesn't interest me. Because that would be apathy, and that's one thing. But hate is different. Like hate is a lot closer to love than it is to apathy. And it would be totally different if I just was like, it's never been that interesting to me. But it's not that. I was like, fuck that thing. Like, fuck yoga. I hate it. And Andrew really pointed that out to me, and I had to face that, and I kept trying, and I would literally try it. And the first thing I'd had to do was I tried it with some privacy, because I work out outside a lot because we stay at these RV parks. But as soon as I felt like someone is walking by and sees me doing a down dog, I feel like embarrassed. I feel awkward. And I just had, so I went inside. I closed all the windows. I was like, all right, I'm going to just do this inside for a minute. And it started getting better, but I'd still find something. They'd say a term, a pose I didn't know the name of. I'd fall behind the instructor on the YouTube video, whatever. And I got so mad. I'd be so like aggressively frustrated. And then I think something finally started to click, because I did one and I was like, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to try. And what I found was like my legs were shaking so bad holding these poses. And it was like really quad heavy one. Yeah. And I was like, oh, this is supposed to suck. I understand. I guess I used to think it was stretching. It's not stretching. It's supposed to hurt really bad. And at the same time, what I realized is like, I hate holding still. Like I hate, and I just had to get clarity on this, isometric. I hate isometric work.
Yeah.
Like if I'm holding something heavy and I have to like hold it out, I'm angry.
Yeah,
I hate that. And I
You're
was
probably
like,
vibrating so hard that you got it's like it's painful to stay still or something. Yeah.
and I know that it's because I'm not a flexible person. I never worked on it, all these things, but I was like, oh, that's the weakness. That's the thing. There's a reason I hate this. It's because it makes me feel weak. If I can lift up a real heavy weight and be like, oh, I can lift a heavy weight and I can lift a heavier one next time, but like standing, in like a chair pose for like a long period of time is so frustrating.
We're practicing exactly the same thing, because it's like you had an aversion towards the yoga because of just maybe how it was packaged. Maybe it just wasn't like presented in a nice way. But and then for me, it's like I didn't like being injured. Like so it's like I would hate being injured. And so like, well, I guess. Well, I don't know if that's kind of, you can't connect it that way, because the hate of being injured sort of motivated me to
But you went into it. When you get that injury now, you're like, I want to understand.
Yeah, I want to understand. Yeah, exactly.
Right,
exactly.
as opposed to being like frustrated with your own body for sort of like betraying you. You're like, nah, I want to understand what just happened.
Yeah.
And I want to make it better next time.
And that's a way to really appreciate the yoga. At least it was for me, because like it's a way, it's like a methodology and a practice where you notice things that you wouldn't notice otherwise, because they do make you stay still. And then I didn't like it either, because I was like, I could be stretching in a way that I like better. That was my big thing. It was like, I get that the downward dog has many benefits, but I don't feel them right now.
Right.
Like I know that I need to work my hamstring, so I would rather work my hamstring. So I would resist going to the organized yoga, which had lots of benefits. So we talk about that, but anyway, but I would resist it for that reason, because I felt like, I was like, man, I'm wasting my time doing that. But then like you said, you do anything that's like you're resisting, you push through it. That's just an opportunity for growth. It's like, and then once you realize that, you start to be more comfortable pushing into stuff that you're not, But then it's like you have to ask yourself, well, do I really want to do that? But it's like you feel like you're driving the boat more.
Yeah.
And so and then at the end of the day, like I'll always just be able to release it by just your own spirituality or whatever it is, like or just acceptance that there's only so much that we can control, and things are going to unfold however they unfold, and it's like we can't control it at the end of the day. So
right.
Yeah,
it's when you have to face yourself, there's so much value there. And it's like you gotta go into the innermost cave. You gotta really go for it. And that's one of those things that people say, and I think it's probably good advice, is if there's something you're resisting, it's probably an indicator that it might be something you actually need.
Yeah.
And that, I don't know, that can make a big difference.
Yeah. Totally.
And I had the same thing with jiu-jitsu too. Like I didn't grow up doing martial arts. I wish I had, frankly. And I didn't do anything in sort of like my wife Andrea, so she was a dancer for her whole life and taught dance, and she's phenomenal. And so she can look at what somebody else is doing and make it make sense in her brain, and then go onto the floor and do it.
Yeah.
And that's not something I have. So if someone's like showing me something, it will take me 10 to 15 times to like physically understand, like, oh, okay, you're putting your left hand there and then you're doing this. And so the first time I tried jiu-jitsu was really, really hard, because I'm like watching the instructor do something and they definitely break it down, and I'm just dumb when it comes to that. I have no perception to put it in my own body. And I realized, like, all right, that's a weakness, and it's going to suck to get over it, but I'm going to have to just start getting over it.
Yeah, the silver lining is and this is like a very common thing that a lot of people notice after starting jiu-jitsu in a very early on, is that you start to just use your body in a different way. Like people will notice the one that's specific is like, oh, I roll out of bed in a different way.
Yeah.
Because I don't even remember how I'd roll out of bed before, but like you can just roll to the side and then sort of like kind of lean onto your like shoulder a little bit, and then just push your hips back, and just basically like you'll just start to move more efficiently.
Right.
Like when I just bend down to get things now, I'll sort of squat in a way that isn't putting a lot of pressure on like my lower back and stuff, which is sort of like a sore spot for me. It's like you just learn how to move better. It's like like when people, you see that, for me, like what I envy are those parkour guys that can run and be like agile, like Spider-Man.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so it's like
we all want to do it.
Yeah, like, but the risk there is like, man, those guys can really, really hurt themselves.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Badly.
That impact is not good. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So for me, that risk factor is a little bit heavy for the benefit, but for jiu-jitsu, you can develop that agility, but in a safe environment where it's like even like the people attacking you and stuff like this. One way to make it more accessible to people is like just realize like what you're fighting against. Like, you're not fighting against tigers or animals or anything that can really hurt you that much. Like we're basically like pink soft flesh that don't even have claws or anything really, or anything or any kind of offensive capability to speak of other than biting, which we're not allowed to do, and like and punching each other with our weird like fists that have like so many knuckles in them. It's like it's not necessarily ideal,
Yeah.
So it's like then people will say aggressive cuddling, but it's like it's really like if you make it like that, it sort of takes away some of the scariness or the fear of having like a physical altercation with somebody. And so if somebody grabs you, you'll be like, oh, like you'll just be like, it'll be more familiar.
Yeah.
Whereas if that practice like you did was absent, then as soon as you'd grab you, you'd be faced with the unknown, and you'd
also just get flooded with adrenaline.
Yes.
Like you'd lose all sense of like a smart thing to do.
Yeah.
You need to be able to develop like a mindset of like, oh, I'm comfortable enough with that, so now I can actually think of what it is that I can do. But you're right. Like I see jiu-jitsu guys, and they always move differently. Like you can almost tell. And when you watch a fight, you can tell like which one of the fighters is more comfortable on the ground and like more comfortable in their own body. They like stand a little lower. It's like a lot more flexible. Like, you can watch those guys. And you just know.
Yeah.
I just think that's super cool. And you see, I guess I didn't before, but now that I've seen more, I understand the pathway to get there, which is all about just getting comfortable on the ground, especially getting comfortable, a little more flexible, work the yoga, work something awkward like a kettlebell, You can do all of those things, and you'll find yourself being a lot more comfortable in your own body. Yeah. But we don't talk about that. We don't talk about it in a societal way, especially for guys, being comfortable in your own body. Yeah. And I think that a lot of issues that guys have with trying to be macho and all these problems is like, it's like no one ever told you how to be comfortable just being yourself. And so there's so much posturing that guys do, and so much like, I need to appear a certain way, and it's not a good thing for them in the end. Yeah. I don't know.
That's sort of like our natural instincts, It's like I think people just like want to be able to assert, in their own space, just because of what our nature, like what we are, like what we evolved from, like in order to survive with these sort of like I said, like sort of soft pink bodies that don't have any really any sort of offensive capabilities. Like we have to develop, in terms of our minds, in terms of our social adaptability and our social interactions with other humans to sort of cooperate to be able to survive the elements together. And so in that process, as they come together, it's like I need to be some semblance of leadership, and there's always going to be contentious, between other males. And so it's like almost ingrained in us to act that way. And that's another benefit of jiu-jitsu, is it sort of says like, yeah, man, you sort of feel like you should always be like at that top, because it's our natural out of the box like programmed setting. But then when you come into the jiu-jitsu gym, like you realize that it's way bigger than that. It's way bigger than you. You're one person, but you're also there's billions of people, and they all have those same capabilities, just the extent to which they've sort of realized themselves. And
you get humbled a lot.
Yes, that's sort of what I'm trying to get to, like in a long way around,
in a really, really positive way.
But then that's what you need. That's what you need, like that painful lesson that will help you grow in the end.
We don't have any sort of proving ground as a culture.
Yeah, but we do though. It's here.
Yeah, we definitely
but it's also
do.
But
but it's not standard.
Yeah,
It'd be one thing if there was some aspect of martial arts like in schools or something. Yeah. There's nothing.
Yeah.
There's no proving ground of like here's what I can be good at, and I recognize what everybody else is good at. And part of that is wow, now I'm going way too many levels up. But I do feel like a huge part of it is the idea that we are not just born into a tribe that we can understand now. It's the fact that we interact with so many more people than we're supposed to.
Yeah.
And you're kind of supposed to be able to have like, I'm good at this thing. Like I make the shoes for this tribe. All right. And that guy makes the music, and he's real good at music, and I'm real good at shoes, and I'm real bad at music, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And I think so many people take on the pressure of feeling like I have to be the best at everything. And there's still no way to test it other than doing crazy shit like trying to go out and get in fights. And probably maybe if more people did that, that'd be helpful too. Like kids can't even get in fights now.
Yeah, or they need to be made to realize that they don't need to do that.
Right.
You know, if they can just focus on the feeling of feeling good and just doing whatever they need to do that's specific for them to just not feel like they need to go out and just have so much aggression. And jiu-jitsu is a nice one because you get to go out and actually practice that aggression on each other, but with in good nature, and so you can kind of see that. So it's a very direct way to do it, and so that's a lot of the good value. But like, man, sometimes like I'll be frustrated, or like from a fight or something, and something like that. It's like I don't even like to think about them as fights anymore. It's just sort of like different vibrations that sort of like have sort of an abrasion or a friction, and that just need to be resolved, you know, and better understood by both, you know, because when we encounter those issues, it's never one person at fault. It's usually the way I like to look at it. In order to solve it in the fastest way, I will put it on myself, because I feel like anytime you run into that kind of issue, like where there's an incongruency in the vibration, it's like it's a reflection of myself. It might be the way I'm the receiving it. That's at least half of it.
Yeah.
And if I can take that out of the picture, then it's hopefully resolvable, you know, because the other person say, oh, he's reasonable, and then
that's sort of like that level of like personal responsibility.
Yes,
is what you're talking about.
Oh yeah, I guess like that might come from that concept of just absolute accountability, you know, that you get from reading about military stuff.
Sure. Yeah, that's
know?
Sort of, isn't that like Jocko Willink's big thing?
Yeah.
And oh shoot, I forget the name of his book. Extreme Ownership. Yeah, I couldn't get through that book, unfortunately.
Yeah,
I tried.
Yeah,
it's a long one. And I love reading, but that book just I'll try it again one day, I'm sure. Sometimes I feel like I love reading good books about like mentality or even sort of like self-help stuff. I'm on it all the time. I love it.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's not the right lesson for you in that moment.
Yeah.
And you can feel it and you're like, this isn't really resonating with me. And then you'll read the one that's like, oh, this is calling out my bullshit.
Yeah.
All right. I feel
honestly,
that.
I think each time that happens, it's getting in, even if it's not enough to completely flip you off your back, or however you want to look at it, but it's getting in, and it's opening you up to the next time you hear it, like it might click.
Yeah.
You know, and the only reason I'm thinking about that way, as you mentioned, I've never really thought about it that way, but yeah, like it happens a lot with my wife when I'll hear something out in the open, or I'll read something and I'll say, oh look, I got this, and she'll be like, man, I told you that already. You know?
Yeah, that one flew right over my head, or it was just the wrong time.
Yeah, and I'll be like, Burb, like that's when you told me that's what made me make that connection with when I read that. It's so valuable. I appreciate that. I
feel like that's why it's so good I'm always trying to take in things I think will make me feel better, or be better, really, not feel better, but be better.
Yeah.
And if you're constantly tapping into the fact that, well, the good thing about the I don't know, the modern advancements we have is that I can 24/7 take in something that will make me better. I can learn something from someone who's smarter than me or better at something than me.
Yes.
And I can push on myself 100% to improve all the time. And so if you just have like a steady stream of things you're taking in, you can become better and better in small ways. And those things will lock in eventually.
Yeah, and we have access to all that information now, you know, and so we can become as like great as, it's like we have all the access to all of like the great libraries and everything that have risen and fallen like throughout our history. And it's like we're literally standing on the shoulders of all those giants that came before us and figure out all these things, and we can go research and find them now.
Right.
And so we can keep going up, and it's sort of like it works out with our human nature to kind of always want to climb and climb and climb.
Right.
And that's how we're able to climb out of this jungle that we live on the planet here, and then sort of take our position as like the dominant species here. But and as long, I think the only danger with that is like as we continue to climb and climb, that we don't get in our own way, like we don't get in each other's way, where it's like people vying against other people, and then they lose track of the higher goal or the higher order, which is to try to, you know, have harmony between us all together as one, you know, one greater organism that's like either God or the universe or whatever it is. Like what we're doing here is just like a micro interaction, or what is called in chemistry, you know, where there's actions and reactions or whatever, to the greater organism, which is like, if you want to look at just our environment, you know, the Earth, you know, it's like whatever we do, it's like having an impact. So so yeah, it's like we need to get out of our heads out of our own butts sometimes, and just realize that, and then it gets easier, I think.
This is kind of what I was thinking about before with the idea of quality of that writer I mentioned, Robert Pirsig.
Yeah.
And he talks about existence as sort of being, because it's metaphysics, so it's about like, what is existence, right? And then you get the idea that quality sort of is trying to prevail continually. So whatever is of a higher quality will continue to prevail. And so if we think about that as humans and put it within our own scope, it only means a certain thing. But if you zoom out and realize that humans are a part of a larger piece of this, so are we the thing that is gonna push quality forward, or are we done with our part of pushing quality forward and something else, maybe AI is the thing that then pushes quality forward? Like, you just don't know what it is next that's going to create that next sort of level of quality. But if there's one thing that is consistent, it's that we'll move to higher and higher levels of quality.
I mean, I can tell you just from what I've learned in the jiu-jitsu gym is it'll come directly from ourselves and our own desire to compete and improve with each other, which is they're sort of like ourselves, right? If we're all part of one higher organism, so they're all helping us get better and sort of achieve that higher and higher level, like you were saying before, to always improve. So that's one nice thing that's helped me mellow me out actually a lot about jiu-jitsu, because I know that if I practice it, I'm always improving it for sure. So that'll be the one thing that I have confidence in. I'm always improving, and it's having a lot of trickle down in terms of like how I can just sort of receive other things in my life. Like if I have some kind of stress or something like that, then those things will also improve just from my practicing of something, something like the jiu-jitsu. So I think then the peace then comes from having the faith that I'm having progression, each day. So if I'm working every day, I think we really sort of drive ourselves crazy is when we trying our very best to improve and try to go up, but we don't sense the progression. So we don't feel ourselves going up. But like the way I've sort of because I'm doing this one thing long enough that if you sort of take a snapshot of the whole thing and you look at it in sort of a macro way, you can sort of see the pattern of it continually going up, the occasional plateaus. So that just even if it feels like you're on a plateau, it's like your brain is, it's just, the plateau is created not by you not going up or improving. The plateau is created by other people, like maybe going up faster or learning how to counter you directly. And so you've kind of created this false perception in your own game that it's like you're not going up, but you are. It's other people have sort of created a ceiling for you. And so now you have to adapt, like try to focus in on what precisely is it in the practice that they're doing that's different than yours. And maybe just focusing on getting out of the plateau is all you need to kind of like allow yourself to just sort of like just optimize that much more to be able to beat that person and give you the idea that you're progressing more. Right. But then if you know that you're going up every practice, if you know it, like if you believe it like in your core, then you almost only have to worry about that. You'll always be aligned because you'll be like, there's always value there. So it keeps you feeling peaceful. It's
a really good Gary Vee concept where it's the one I was talking about this yesterday with Andrea, where he says micro speed, macro patience. The idea that like you're gonna just go as hard and fast as you can every single day, but then you're gonna realize that nothing happens overnight. And just recognize that like this is gonna take a long time, and life is a lot longer than you think.
Patience,
and just stay patient with it, but just keep working away, just keep chipping away, even if it's slow. It's like prisoners breaking out of jails where they dig holes in concrete walls with spoons. It takes them years and years and years to do it, but eventually they do it.
They probably see the spoonful of progression each time. They're like, oh, it's like addictive.
I've never really thought about it from that perspective as the prisoner. But yeah, I mean, you would be like, this is the only thing I have that's keeping me around is this idea that
they have to figure out where they're going to put the extra, all that stuff. Like it's like they have to get it out to the yard somehow. So it's like one problem after another problem that they got to get through.
I love those stories, man. A good like old school prison break story is so cool. And then I like how mostly in those stories, but even in that story, like he leaves, he gets out, he's gone, and it's not like he's out there trying to commit more crimes. He's like, I'm out. Bye. I'm gone. Like, I'm going to go find freedom now. Or it's like, Count of Monte Cristo, which would be sort of that ultimate revenge story. Did he escape? I think he did. I think he faked his death to get out of prison.
See, now that one I don't know. I only know the sandwich.
The sandwich?
The Monte Cristo.
That one's, oh man, that's a great book. It's so fucking long, but it's a great book because he's in prison for I think 19 years for a crime he didn't commit. He loses his whole life, he loses his girl, everything. But then he finds a way to get out. I think that what he does is he like fakes his death and switches his body with another guy. And this guy like sends him to go find this massive fortune. He gets this massive fortune, and the whole book is like his revenge plot. And he's like, I've had 19 fucking years to think about this, and it's intense. It's great. But he saw that there's like, I don't know, he kept that hope. He kept that hope, and he kept working on it. And he knew like at some point I'm gonna get my revenge. I'm gonna get back, get out, and life will go on. And I think at the end of the story, he just sort of like is able to move on with his life, and like it seems like
Man,
he's going
good
to be
for him
happy
if he was able to get his revenge and then move on nicely. Because I tend to believe personally that when we try to go out and try, or when we're motivated in that way, we produce results that are painful for them, which is obviously the goal, but also ourselves.
It's the vessel thing, the poison
Yeah.
that kills the vessel that holds it.
Yeah, totally,
right?
totally. So I feel like when there's those stories where there's the revenge and it's sort of like a gratuitous feel, like Kill Bill is kind of like that, where it's
Sure.
like, oh, I'm just gonna go and have tons of revenge and everything. But I feel like by doing that, and that movie, you can tell it's like it's sort of based in sort of a fantasy a little bit, you know. It's even the way they film it and everything. But yeah, I feel if you keep everything about truth and about like what we know about like the vibrations and the energies and like what we feel when we practice like goodness and practice like concepts that we learn from lots of different philosophies and mindsets or whatever, blah blah blah. But yeah, like we're inadvertently. Even though it feels good to try to get back at them, we're kind of taking ourselves out too,
Right.
because we can't account, because we're so, man. One thing that I need to always remind myself is that how little we can see and how little we can
Yeah.
perceive. Like if you really study like how the eyes work and how the rods and cones work and how we pick up and translate information, like we don't see anything.
Well, go to another level too. I mean, like which dimensions are we perceiving?
Yeah,
Like,
man.
like,
Oh my gosh. Yeah,
which
like,
universe are we in? Which are we in a simulation? I like that kind of stuff.
even if
too.
you just go two dimensions to three dimensions, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's like all of a sudden we can't even depict it really on a podcast.
There's a really good explanation of that. The idea of like a two-dimensional city where people move around in only two dimensions, and then as soon as this third dimension sort of comes along, they can't even really understand
I think
it.
I saw a really good explanation on the show Cosmos.
Yeah, okay.
Carl Sagan.
Yeah,
Sagan,
it must have
yes.
been Cosmos.
Yes,
And
yes.
it's in the book too. That's why
Yeah.
I'm thinking of that.
Man, but he did like an apple slice and just did a print there, and was like you wouldn't be able to see anything above like even this a sticker on like
It's
laying
too
down
thick.
there.
Yeah,
It's
still
that's, there's
3D.
height. Yeah, but yeah, if you go into fourth dimension, which I guess would be time or something, it's like there's a lot of people out there talking. I'm not any kind of into physics or anything like that. I just like to think about things, but it's like the clock ticking is just the best thing that we can represent for us to have some kind of sense of it. The best
Right.
thing that we've come up with. But then, because there's a lot of schools of thought that's like, and if you think about it, the only thing that we can perceive is the present. You know, we can't really perceive the past accurately. It's just recollection of memories and stuff that we can kind of pull up. But like the only thing that's really happening that we're in is like right now.
Right.
You know, and so and sort of that ties into the idea of like what we do is important. Like even just every little action is sort of setting intent, and sort of that's going to dictate where you are like down the road. So in a sense, we're sort of like changing the future just by making choices.
Yeah.
So
Well, and you're making me think of like a really good like Alan Watts talk where he talks about the idea of like how we perceive the past. And I think what he talks about in that talk, I wanted to make sure I get it right, is the idea that like the past is actually the wake behind the boat, as opposed to what we often think, which is that it's something that sort of is propelling us forward. So it's kind of like when the first time I heard that, it sort of blew my mind, because I was like, oh, so it's nothing is sort of like predetermined just because of whatever has happened so far. Like all I am is in the boat, and I can just look back and see that there's a wake behind me of things that have happened, but I'm never gonna experience those things. They're behind. They have nothing to do with where I'm at now.
Yeah.
It's the boat that's actually creating it,
Yeah.
and that's intense. I guess it's almost the same when it comes to martial arts, which is like the only thing that matters is exactly what's happening right now. So you're not thinking about what happened in the last couple rounds, where it seems like you're on the bottom. It seems like you're Anderson Silva, and it's Chael Sonnen. That's the other guy. I missed it before. But all he knew was like, oh, there's the triangle.
Yeah.
And he gets it. That's
Grab
it.
it.
It doesn't
Yeah.
matter what happened in the other 4 rounds, because there's the triangle.
Yeah.
Uh,
Like the leverage is undeniable. Once you lock it, it's like he has to first of all know how to unwind it or protect himself from like a leverage standpoint, and you can't just resist it. If you just resist it by just squeezing and just without any other direction other than that, like he'll just lock out the triangle and finish you off. But
Right.
if you can sort of angle it in a way that pushes directly against the angle that he's trying to close, you can sort of buy yourself some time and eventually try to posture out of it, and sort of break his ability to connect. That you're trying to break that connection, but once they have that connection, it's tight. you have to just accept it.
I feel like this happens a lot. There's a real connection between jiu-jitsu and philosophy somehow. And I guess that's kind of where we started this whole conversation, which is this idea that's like, how could this thing, which if you just look at it from a real stationary perspective, is just like, hey, we're just rolling on the ground and we're kind of rolling around and we're going to see who wins. That's it. But then how does that somehow start translating to all of this philosophy? And it does every single time. It's undeniable.
I'll give you an idea. I'll give you the idea of it, and goes back from when I was a kid. When you read all these like Greek myths and stuff about like all these different like gods and demigods and these kinds of things, and so they would say that these people are gods and demigods, and I'm thinking specifically of you've heard of all these guys like Perseus and like Hercules and stuff, but and they all have these different gifts. Hercules had so much strength, and Perseus would get like these different weapons that would allow him to fly and all these kinds of stuff. Oh, okay, he's God, it's very obvious. But then there was Theseus, who was like one of the sons of Poseidon, and he didn't necessarily know that he didn't know like that he was the son of Poseidon. He thought he was told by his mother that he was the son of some king or something like that, and so he knew that he had to go out and try to honor that and try to be a great man, but he didn't know that he was the son of a god. And so and then again, it doesn't make any difference. We're all a god is just a word that we use to describe somebody with greater power in these stories, for example. Like, so in the case of this guy, he doesn't have any gifts. So the only real purpose of making the distinction in that he didn't know is that he isn't receiving all these gifts and everything from Poseidon that in order to make his greatness. He just went out and just applied himself. And this is Theseus is the guy that wound up in Minos in the labyrinth that had to fight the Minotaur and these kinds of things. And his whole story is basically a long story about like some Navy SEAL badass that just went out, was a small guy. He learned how to wrestle. He learned how to do jujitsu. He learned how to fight just by using leverage and stuff on people. And it's described in these old poems and stuff like that. They would have been written in Greek originally and then translated. I think it's by Devlin. It's some kind of, I'll tell you later, but who was written it by Greek Myths and Monsters or something was the text that I kind of I use as reference.
I need to pick up something on that because I don't know anything Greek mythology, but that sounds fucking awesome.
But the cool connection there is that we sort of start to realize that if you go back, that those people that were considered like the gods back then and stuff, like we have all those powers now. Like, so like we have all those abilities. Like, so like Theseus like was able to learn jiu-jitsu, like we can do that. Like Perseus was able to have like a winged Pegasus, as he got him where he needed to go. We have that too. We have helicopters, we've got airplanes that get us there. Like, Hercules, we have machines that do that for us. And it's like, if we were to go back in time and just, we'd be spacemen, we'd be gods at those times.
Right.
And so those myths and everything, like, give people, like, because those gods have human qualities and they're seen as flawed. And this is also in Norse mythology too. Like, all their gods were believed to walk the earth, and you could run into one maybe if you saw somebody that was that much greater than you. And then if you saw those person's feats, then you could create belief, and then you could use that to drive your progression to being greater and greater, because the gods walk among us. Or you have the more modern Western faiths where it's kind of like an ephemeral concept where we're part of something greater, the universe or God or whatever. But
we still do. I'm trying to think of like what is it that we do with mythology now? Like, I think we've done it with celebrity almost.
Yeah.
Like if you want like an icon of the inventor genius, we think, okay, well, there's Elon Musk, and this is and that's how it's going to go down in those history books. It'll be a little more fact-based. There'll be some video to back it up that this guy existed. But
what he did, that separated himself in where everybody else has the same advantages, but he was able to figure out a way to sort of rise up, in this world where there's billions of people now trying to cooperate more and more.
But I think where it gets really twisted is when celebrity becomes the end goal in itself. Yeah. Like, as opposed to the idea of wanting to do something that is great and is undeniable, and the celebrity, the mythology, whatever that follows it, that comes afterward.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people now just chase the idea of that celebrity, of that icon, of having an image, and they haven't done anything that gets them that. And you've got
sort of a fast it's a fast fix, to feel good. But then I think what happens when they try to do that is that it won't fix, like, maybe what they're feeling, like the whatever compels you to act that way. It's probably, I mean, at least for me, it's because of maybe some kind of feeling that I need to be more. Right. Maybe that manifests itself in terms of like some kind of anxiety or whatever, that you got to go out and do that. But I think when that happens, you realize that behaving that way would only intensify the feelings, because you realize over time that nothing's changed. You know, and there's actually a lot of one book that was like really useful for me was a book called Siddhartha. It was about
I love that book.
man, it was so awesome because this guy had he was the prince or he was not necessarily a prince, but he was the son of like a holy man, and he's like going out and then he's trying to experience all of life. So he lived as
Are you thinking of the Buddha though?
Yeah, the Buddha. Yeah,
okay.
he has the Buddha.
Because I don't think that's Siddhartha. Siddhartha's he starts as a monk.
Yeah.
In that story.
Yeah, I was thinking of the one by Hermann Hesse, the German guy.
But Siddhartha meets the Buddha.
Yeah. Yeah, he meets the Buddha.
Story.
Yeah, and he moves along. Yeah,
Yeah.
He moves along, and he's just like
he's not into it.
He didn't follow that. He didn't
Right.
follow that path. Like his friend wound up following the Buddha.
Yeah.
Shoot, what the heck was?
I don't remember the friend's name, but they still end up together. They still end up.
At the end, yeah, they wound up together at the end of where his friend had followed the path of the Buddha, and Siddhartha had followed his own path. But he had come to the same conclusions that this other guy had all essentially borrowed from the Buddha, and Siddhartha had discovered them on his own, like
Right.
on his own path. But the one thing, the biggest like silver bullet or gravy sort of aspect or extra that I got from it was the fact that Jim Carrey talks about this a lot too, but he kind of experienced everything, like he experienced great riches and great poverty, and he didn't he experienced like what he so in other words you get to try all the flavors, you know, and then so you realize that all of this desire and anxiety to get something, it's not going to be any kind of solution for you. It's just seeing something in a slightly different perspective and realize, and then when you actually see it or have it, you realize that it was only a perspective shift. Like that
Right.
physical thing doesn't bring you any more happiness.
Right.
It's just how you can feel about it, or how you perceive it,
Right.
or receive it.
Right. And then we do that with wealth too. I mean,
Yes,
the idea of
yeah.
like, and there's so many different wealthy people who are like, well, I thought I'd be happy when I got rich, and I can
Yeah.
tell you that I'm not happy just because I'm rich.
Yeah.
That didn't do anything. I was still the same person. I was still had all the same anxieties and all that stuff.
I would go out on a limb and guess that those people that feel that way were maybe trying to do it to be successful for success's sake, maybe.
Yeah.
And if you find something that you really love, then I feel like the prosperity or whatever will just fall down on you just
Right.
naturally. I hope, or at least you'll feel comfortable enough that you're satisfied with what you do have.
Yeah.
You know, and so it'll just sort of you just won't starve to death. You know.
Yeah. But it's hard too, you know, because it definitely takes practice too, because to master the idea that like, I don't know, that you're not like chasing after some end goal that is the end goal in itself or whatever, you know, like podcasting I always think is a really good example, because I could be out trying to make the biggest podcast of all time.
Yeah.
The truth is, I just really like doing it, and I really like meeting people, and I really like I like the format of it. I like
Yeah.
the format of like a long conversation, where we're both like locked in, and we're just like having this talk, and we're talking about things that we'd never talk about in a casual context.
Yeah,
it has to
yeah.
be like we're doing a podcast.
Yeah.
now.
Right. Yeah. Right. That's a good point.
And I'll still, you know, I'll try so hard not to look at like the download numbers on my podcast. You know.
Oh yeah.
Because that tells you like, oh, am I
Indicator.
making it?
Yeah.
You know, and you just have to be like, you know what? That's not what it was for.
Yeah.
That's not what it was for. And I've done podcasts with all types of people who have all types of different followings, from people who have like, okay, they've got 200 followers online, and I've had podcasts with people with 5 digits of followers online. And the difference for me is really just comes down to like whether the conversation was good or not. Like that other part never really mattered. In fact, actually, when I talk with people who have like really small following, and they get real excited about it, and they'll tell their people about it.
This is a good example.
The 100 people that follow them are like,
Yeah.
this is amazing. Like, this is so great to hear you talk on a podcast. It's so great and
Yeah,
fun.
that's exciting.
And the people who have tens of thousands are like, all right, another thing this guy did.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You can't
So
have nearly the same community.
Yeah,
that way.
it's like they have a different sense of it. They're like, okay, it's oh well, this is just one person interaction. They're not really seeing the value of being able to like spend that time to get a deeper perspective of what that other person is about. Because then if you can learn that, you know, it'll basically just give you a couple extra degrees with which you can kind of add to your own perception of things. So it's like, and that again comes from, well, you could come from jiu-jitsu, right? That sort of always improving like your capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
Like for flying, it's limitations. They think of it in reverse. That for the airplanes, like it's not about making it go faster and faster. The thing that they, as a pilot, they want you to be hyper aware of is not the peak, but the bottom of it, like the limitations, because they don't want you breaking the airplane accidentally. They want
Okay.
so and that applies with jiu-jitsu too, because you want to learn the limitations of your when I get injured, for example,
Yeah.
I exceeded the limitations of my muscles.
Right.
So I was driving the boat. I was using the mech suit, the biological mech suit, irresponsibly. Like I could have protected that.
Right.
And then I strengthened it or whatever. But yeah, I kind of lost my train of thought with that.
That's
but
okay.
That was kind of one of
That
those
happens.
points I really wanted to make, and I think I finally saw my chance.
Yeah.
And it came out. But yeah, this if we to go back to like that feeling that, oh, you always want to look back at the numbers and stuff. Again, I think that's what we talked about, is that the progression, that feeling, that progression. You want to see it go up.
Well, and the thing is, you
know?
want someone else to tell you you're doing good.
Yeah.
Like it's not enough for me to be like, wow, I had like a great talk with that person. That was an awesome conversation that we had, and I learned a lot.
Uh-huh.
What you still want for some reason is for someone else to tell you that it was
Yeah.
interesting. And I think separating yourself from that feeling is super crucial.
Yeah.
And it will take me hundreds of episodes to
Yeah.
like finally be like, I don't really care anymore. I'm actually just like, because as much as as I'll try, I'll still look. I'll still be like,
Yeah.
more people could have listened to that.
Yeah.
But it's also a good way to keep yourself down at the same time. If all you can ever do is focus on what other people are telling you, whether people are telling you you're doing well or not, that's a great way to just destroy your own self-esteem all the time.
Yeah.
which is
Man, that's
good
actually
and
like
bad.
that's actually some gravy or silver bullet in itself, because it allows you to detach very easily from those other people. Like
Yeah.
to say like, okay, well, they could like it or not, and it doesn't change what's been made already. But then I
Yeah.
guess you still want to know like how you could change it or that. But then it's like how much how much control do you have over that directly? You can only have control over like how you set up, who you talk to, but you can't really control what the guy's going to say.
Well,
you know?
I think the only thing that you can do. Do you know who Adam Grant is?
No.
I've heard him on a couple podcasts, and he does this like organizational psychology. He's he's great at getting teams to work better together. And the thing he's all about is like super honest feedback. Like you can tell me anything as long as it's legitimate feedback about what I do and how I could do it better, then I will try to take that and not be hurt by it and learn from it and become better.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's an element of that. I've been thinking a lot about it with the podcast. Like if I asked guests like, hey, what did you like about doing it? Or like, what did you think made it a good conversation? And then what did I do that made you feel like that wasn't a good conversation or it wasn't a good experience? Like, was I talking too much? Did you feel like you were talking too much? Because to me, this is also an art form, and it's its own completely unique thing. And there are people who do it really, really well that I think it's like, that's quality. This is the art form. And then people who like just do it for completely other purposes, like to build some business, to bring advertisers, to do whatever. And I feel like there's got to be a way to push yourself to become better. And I think part of that is getting that type of feedback from the people that are actually there with you doing it. Because you are guest number, I want to say 37.
Oh, awesome. It's a good number.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lucky number for me. And so you have to imagine that between 1 and 37, I'm hopefully doing some things better, but I don't actually know. I'm not for sure. I know I feel more comfortable, but that's not always a good indicator, because you can just get more comfortable just by doing something over and over again. Doesn't mean you're doing it better.
I think it does. I think
so?
Yeah, I absolutely think it does, and the reason is because, and I can say that from, if you look at jiu-jitsu training and the flight training and the music training, like anytime you try to do it, like, I mean, you're practicing it, so your brain will try to optimize it to try to improve it better and better.
That's a good point.
Based on like whatever your idea of what a better podcast is, whether it's being able to express your ideas more naturally or be able to go into it, just feeling less apprehension about it, maybe, or something like that, which would have been probably pretty high on the first couple, which by 37 it's probably gone by now.
Yeah, it's a little different.
Yeah.
It's I love finding people though, man. And the other thing is I know who to look for too. Like I can tell.
Yeah, see, it's improving.
Yeah, I can tell. Like, okay, like you and I we've been having a really cool conversation. And obviously,
Thank you,
it seems like we think a lot along the same
Thank you, man.
lines. And now I kind of know what to look for, and I'll kind of like avoid people. I'm like, I don't think that person is going to go there with me.
Yeah.
Because if I have to like pull someone along and be like, come on, let's think about philosophy, let's think about some meta things, then they're not going to have any fun. I'm probably just going to be struggling the whole time to get it going. And that just makes a big difference.
Yeah, I mean, it really pushed that stuff because, like, jiu-jitsu, you could say, like, oh, yeah, it's a great way to kind of have a progression and stuff. Like, well, yeah, because it's have all that stuff built in. But I feel like any kind of pursuit that you pursue to mastery, like, then that it has those same kind of self-elevating qualities of the built into the practice, because you're just basically giving your brain something to try to optimize all the time. And so it really, you have no choice as long as you apply your focus on improving it. It's like a plant that grows. It's like there's no other outcome really. Like as long as you have the good intent and everything, and you're actually doing the drilling. So yeah, and that's just from martial arts and from flying. And from the music.
And you're doing it with music too. Yeah, I wanted to bring that up because I see a lot of the stuff that you do on Instagram is you with like a ukulele or banjo or whatever it is. Yeah. So how did that get started? How did the music get folded in?
So that I just started doing initially because I just wanted to learn a new instrument. And I knew for a fact that when I compete in jiu-jitsu, that when I go to compete, like the feeling of it was way more intense. Like the pressure on that I would put on myself was way more intense. So I'd have to basically have to contend with that, and so it would force my brain to kind of adapt in a more kind of hostile environment, if you want to call it that. And so with the music, like I could kind of like just learn how to play this thing by myself, you know, and just do it or I could do it where I'm putting it out like just on a story or something or on a little thing, and it become a functional practice for me to get some extra benefit, because I know that a lot of people will see it, even if it's like sucky or whatever, you know, whatever. They'll at least maybe appreciate the fact that I'm sucking with a purpose, you know, like that it's for a couple different reasons, for like my own development, but also if the vibration that I'm putting out there does actually resonate with somebody, and it makes them feel a little bit lighter, then it's like kind of a double benefit. So it's like you're putting it out there. So it's like really, and if I needed any more reason than that to try to put that out there and try to learn that way, just that idea of putting that intent out there, like just like saying, okay, well, if I do this, then there's one less thing separating me, a person who can't play an instrument, from musicians who, you know, who do the same thing for a living. So that I'm kind of like making that gap smaller, you know, and it becomes a matter for me, the time it takes to accumulate the skills to really make me into that, transform me into that musician. So yeah, it's just a 1, 2, 3 step, you know, kind of thing, and you get motivation to do it because you just have belief and faith that that's going to get you there.
And it's not linear either.
Yeah.
Like playing an instrument is like, you can't just like practice for hundreds and hundreds of hours and become a great artist. That's not really how it works at the same time. Like it can become better and your skills can become better, but you still have to hone in some serious levels of like creativity to be able to do that. And that's a completely different basket. Like someone, like I'm sure there's incredible technical musicians who can play anything you put in front of them, but can they write it?
Yeah.
That's a totally different thing.
Gotcha.
And I feel like working on both of those sides of yourself is really what's challenging about an instrument. And then you add, you know, that element of putting it out there for people, and it'd be the same thing for like a podcast. Like it'd be one thing if I was just recording these just for me, you know, but it's different because I know someone's going to listen to it, and then I have to think about the listener too. And that's what good art can really do, is it's actually about the person that is engaging with it. It's not about the person who's making it necessarily. It can be expression of the person who's making it, but it's got to do something for the person who's watching it, or else there's really no point.
That's a good point. Like it's really interesting to talk to somebody who is like established that they're sort of a mindset of an artist, because I wouldn't even necessarily think of myself as an artist, just sort of a guy who fulfilled different functions like in different jobs as needed, but who eventually began to appreciate what art is, like as an expression of self, like for some purpose, as you described it perfectly, in jiu-jitsu. And then I realized that, oh man, like, you know, you see the connectivity and everything. The flying is, if I had seen flying as an art form sooner, or I hadn't lost the appreciation for what it is, like I could probably continue to do that, like until like I'd be satisfied with that.
Well, things get messy when money gets involved. When it becomes a career. There's no doubt about that. It gets messy.
For sure.
You have to, but I think that's where sort of that undeniability comes in, because as long as you're still like, as long as whatever it is that you're doing, you love and you're putting your best self into. So it's like, it'd be like owning this gym, where it's like, this could easily have made you not like jiu-jitsu, weirdly, because all of a sudden you start pandering, you start bringing in people who you're like, I don't like the way you're doing jiu-jitsu, man. Like, I don't really want you in my gym, but I like your money now. That's really confusing. And that's why, and so, you know, in my other sort of role as a marketer, owning a marketing agency, it's helped me to really recognize what type of clients I want to bring in, and I'm real picky. And if I start seeing those red flags of like, you might be able to pay the monthly cost to have me be your marketer, but I see all those red flags, it's like, I'm not going to want to work with you. I'm going to see those emails. You're going to make me mad a lot, and I'm not going to like that. You're not going to listen to me. You know, I'm way more selective, and I think that's the difference between a happy business owner and a business owner who just kind of is all there for the money, and then they have to seek other things in their life to bring them some type of fulfillment, because it's sort of like you full sold out. Like you lost it all because it's paying the bills, but it's not making you happy at all. So
I would say like the difference. I mean, I feel like a lot of people are probably in exactly that situation where it's like they're in a situation where they're not feeling as inspired as they could be, because they can't connect with the purpose of their job, you know, or whatever, and it's just a natural place to be because like the matrix we live in. But then they need to be able to find something else at the same time, you know, and it's being able to jump from that job into the next thing, or finding some way to make that happen. That could be like one of those things where we talked about earlier, like, you know, it's something you fear, but it's going to be good for you in the end. Yeah. You know, where you think, well, what could happen? And you kind of go through that. Well, I could starve to death. You know, if you start with that and be like, well, am I really going to do that? Or am I just be a little uncomfortable and scared for a little while until I can kind of build up a little bit of momentum and get it going and figure out like how I'm going to, you know, make it all work. But yeah, for sure. Like, I think a lot of people could probably relate to that. Yeah.
Well, I think that's why it's good to have some things that you do purely for the enjoyment of doing them, or for the art of doing them, like for you music, for me podcasting, and then some things that we do that's sort of a mix of things that we like and things for money, things to support a family. Like, all right, I know I'm gonna have to do that at some point, and I might as well do something I really enjoy doing, because I'm gonna need to make money doing something. And I see people who do their whole day as something they hate, and it's just for money. Then they have the thing that they love, and they get to do it on the weekends. And I think that I couldn't do that. I think that that's honestly kind of a brave thing, and I wouldn't want to do it. But it works for them, and that's fine.
Totally.
To me, I need the two things to be together. I really like. I won't keep doing something that if I'm hating it. Like, there's no way. There's no way.
And that's why how we all add our to the different tapestry of like just the human race. You know, it's like we all have different functions. You know, even if it was like a smaller tribe, like way back, like you go back 300,000 years, and there's so many different types of race of human species walking around. You know, what made Homo sapiens like emerge the most. I mean, I guess we had the biggest brains, and we could sort of learn how to cooperate the best. You know, out of these other ones. So
we could specialize, and the other guy specializes. At the same time, though, I'm going to argue both sides here, because I think it's really valuable also for a person to experience everything that it takes to sort of keep them alive. Like, I think anybody who doesn't like mess around with cooking is missing a huge thing. And anybody who doesn't mess around with like working out and keeping their body healthy, missing a huge aspect of life. Like, I think you should do the things that it takes to keep you alive, and see or go camping and just see like, what does it actually take to have me, you know, make and eat several meals a day and be able to actually sleep without connection to the rest of the world. And, you know, I think that can also be really beneficial to just like survive on your own.
That's the most direct way to kind of connect with our more primal self, you know. It's to put ourselves in kind of situations where we would have had to survive back then, and see if it brings us any peace. You know, it takes us willfully out of the matrix that we live in to get some expected value or whatever in terms of a paycheck or whatever, or what we could buy with it, or how we could invest it or whatever, and put ourselves in and how we spend our times in the activities that sort of would be natural outlets, like if we had to survive.
Well, and jiu-jitsu is one of those. Because you're facing like this other monkey is gonna be able to kill me now. Like, this other monkey has understood how to put its arm around my throat, and I'm dead now. Like, and that's a very real situation to face up against. It takes a lot of trust.
And it's sort of like, if you were to go all the way back and say, if they were advanced enough to have the jiu-jitsu practice back then, to be able to like almost kill that other person, but then like retract for the purpose of them both going up, like and both improving, to have like, would have been a radical concept. You know,
sort of that peace over violence kind of mentality.
So like we accept it because sort of we've gone up in civilization, and now we see like in our society how much we have to cooperate in order to kind of have all these great benefits. So we have like supermarkets that we can just walk to and just pick out whatever the heck food we want to, and we have to
fight anybody for it.
We'd have to rely on the whole tribe to get that food from like one grocery trip, you know. And then we sort of are, and if we can sort of really have gratitude and appreciate like some of those blessings that are there because of the matrix we live in and stuff like that. I keep using that example, but like then it's like then the work you do helps facilitate that, and so it all goes back into one pot. And so people get upset about taxes and stuff and where they go and that kind of thing, but it's like, man, like we're not because of our laws and our civilized kind of like way of thinking about things, we don't have to worry about our next door neighbor coming over and killing us, you know, and taking the food out of a refrigerator.
Right. But it's still there.
Yeah.
And we're still violent.
Yeah.
And sometimes your neighbor does come over and try to kill you.
Yeah.
And so you can't
So
ignore,
be prepared.
just can't ignore what we are as an animal.
No.
Like, yeah, like I definitely don't think that dude might, you know, pull out a gun and kill me, but then sometimes they do. Sometimes you're in Walmart and a dude shoots 30 people, you know, and so ignoring where we come from too can be dangerous as well.
Well, one thing that's really valuable about jiu-jitsu here. So like when I'm training jiu-jitsu, first of all, I've died more than 1,000 times. Like I'm already dead. Like I'm already moved on. So that's one thing that I've noticed is that, in just saying that, who cares? But what the nice thing about it is that you sort of get the feeling that as long as you're able to fight to the very end, you know, to fight, and you have some kind of like to goal towards you're working towards, you're not forced to accept it, like way the heck out. Like you have the abilities and skill to sort of keep asserting yourself, like keep protecting until that other person just, sorry buddy, they just take it away from you.
Yeah.
You know, it winds up being okay.
Right.
It winds up being okay. Like if in the beginning when you're first starting out, when you don't have those defenses yet, and you just get killed and you can't figure out why, it's very difficult for the ego to accept, and that's why there's a lot of attrition in jiu-jitsu. They're like, man, this isn't worth it. I don't like it. I'm getting the heck out of here.
Right.
But if you can sort of appreciate like kind of what's happening, like each time you get caught, and you also have the ability to fight back, right, even as it's closing, the darkness is closing all around you, then you feel peaceful. It's kind of peaceful. You're like, oh, I did everything that I could do. And so is the outcome. So it's like I tried everything I could to change it. So it's like very directly connected to the idea of like being happy and active in things we can change, and being able to release things that we can't change, you know. And it's like, wait a second, this isn't only us that are practicing this. If you look back at the old faiths, like the Norse mythology is like super keen on this idea of like, well, if I just fight to the very end, then I guarantee we'll go to Valhalla. You know, like for sure. Like that's the one requirement is that it's like you don't have to be the best. You just have to die trying.
Yeah, it's effort as opposed to the result. Right.
Yeah. The intent, the focus. So because you know you got to be able to let stuff go, because again, like you know we're just when it comes to our biological meat of what it is it's not that great. We're all over the place, and we have shared in common with all these other biological creatures. But
it's a real basic concept of sort of. I mean, it's like a 7 habits concept, isn't it? Where it's like the whole circle of concern, circle of influence thing. The idea of like what am I worried about but totally can't control, versus what can I actually really control? And I know what I can control, which is literally just me. It's literally just the ability to respond to anything. Yeah. And that's all I have. Yeah. And everything else is completely unpredictable. Yeah. I think it's a good mentality. It's like, and that's even like sort of the Stoic mindset of like the whole memento mori. Like I could be leaving this podcast and die on that highway. Yeah. It's reasonable to think so, in fact, because this Charleston traffic is no joke.
Yeah, it's true.
It's not so bad. There's a lot of worse cities. Denver's a lot worse.
Yeah.
Like DC is way worse. But it's totally conceivable. Mm-hmm. So I can only control what I've done up to this point. So was I able to leave my house and my wife and I were on good terms and she knows I love her and you know that's it, because that's it, bye. Yeah. It's super dark to think about, but it also makes you recognize that like all you have control over is the actual thing you can do, which is just you.
That's huge. Thank you. That's huge. Thank you, man, because that's direct. That's the same thing as I was just talking about with the jiu-jitsu, about like did you do everything you could do to be at peace, like if that moment were to happen?
Sure.
Then were it to happen, you'd be like, oh, okay, I talked to her before I left.
Right.
You know, she knows I love her.
Right. Or were you like throwing a fit about something and you're like, all right, I'm going to be the more mad one now, so I'm going to leave now.
That would be tough to go out on that. Maybe you get reincarnated if that happens or something. You know?
Do you buy into reincarnation?
I haven't thought about it. I was thinking about what happens if you get terminated when your vibration is just really negative in a real dark place. What happens to you? You know, I don't know.
I see.
We were trying to look into the fifth dimension.
If you really want to go there, I think I way more subscribe to the concept of of simulation theory. So like I'm way more into the idea that this is a simulation.
Yeah.
I think I'm just more drawn to that than spiritual stuff.
Yeah.
The idea that
So you're
I'm
saying
in a
that the fifth dimension might be it's like a simulation. It's like the dimension that we can't see. So we can't see what's on the other side of the curtain. Because I know I will say for a fact and give you exactly how we're in a simulation, just by looking at just all the social constructs and all the government and everything that's been built around us.
Yeah.
Because we're basically living in a system that is of our own creation.
Right.
The entire system is a simulation. The fact that we get our mail, the fact that we get our milk delivered to a supermarket, it's all a simulation. You know, it's just like a video game playing The Sims in real life.
There's thousands of years of how we're programmed in certain ways to respond in certain ways and want certain things. Even my own philosophy is really just the result of a lot of programming and the things I had access to. And so
public education and everything. Like I see, like, geez, just in the past 10, 20 years, like how I viewed things in the 80s being like sort of brought up on like G.I. Joe and Masters of the Universe and like Thundercats and all these things, like you know, and Ronald Reagan and everything, and like Red Dawn and all these movies and stuff like that. You know, you get a certain sense of like of what it is, you know. But then again, like I'm a kid too, so you see even less of what you see naturally. So you tend to just buy into like you know the great idea of like what the country's about or whatever. How for me it was like how far can you see out, like and at the time it was like, well, it was like about being American, like, so you're America, so you're but then other countries would have different motivations for things, and you'd see like, well, there's already separation being created right there by people by drawing lines on a map, right, when they don't need to exist, but they just exist for organizational purposes. So I don't even
I really don't know.
Yeah.
I get mixed up a lot about it. I guess the thing for me is, okay, if it is a simulation, or if it is that I perceive only in this dimension and there's such a bigger thing happening, I'm just going to experience everything that I can. I'm going to jump in an RV and go see as much of it as I can, because I think it's a real cool simulation if it is one. It's badass. Someone built a great program.
Yeah,
you
dude.
know?
It's limitless in terms of our imagination. We can create whatever we want in it. And there's that sense of magic.
Know the answer. Like you're never gonna find out the answer. I personally don't think that like when you die, it's like, all right, here's a PowerPoint presentation of like, here's all the answers. Here's all the things you always wondered about. Here's the objective truth. Because I don't think that there necessarily is one.
We'll have no way to have perceived it. If you go back to that 2D to 3D thing, you say you sort of accept it. Sorry, I can look at that all day long, and I won't be able to perceive that third dimension if I live in the second dimension. Right. So I like, nobody will get time. Like I won't get time precisely how the feeling of. I mean, maybe people already do. Maybe
people are time traveling in their brains, doing some wild, wacky stuff. I know, but at the same time, like what exists within this dimension is so fantastic. I can feel joy. I can feel pain. I can feel love and heartbreak, and like that's amazing. And not only can I do that, I can do that from like watching a movie. Like I can have a subscription to Netflix and also feel all those things, and then I can go out and actually get my heart broken and do all those things. Like I have multiple levels of being able to experience all I have my own simulations that I can experience.
The greatest game. The greatest.
It's phenomenal. It's great. And that, I think that mindset, if everybody walked into life feeling like, wow, isn't this awesome to be alive? And I wonder if the reason that it feels so good to be alive is if that really only happens in your brain when you accept hardship in certain ways. Because when you've done something shitty, you understand what it's like to do something great. And when you've been poor, you understand how awesome it is to be not. I'd never been rich, but I know that I can pay my bills, and that's a good feeling. And there have been times where I couldn't. And so you have to be able to have the shit to be able to have the great stuff.
The shadow and the light, the yin and the yang, and then that goes back to the Siddhartha, having lived in poverty, and then at the peak where becoming a merchant, having the polarity.
Exactly.
And,
exactly.
You know, to have one side, you have to have the other. So it's like, everything has its purpose. You know, so even if it's like you're not necessarily optimizing going up. Maybe that there's evil in the world just for the reason that we. You know, to create a reason for us to do that, maybe. To try to counter something. Like when I train, it's like, well, for self-defense, I'm talking about self-defense all the time. So I'm, in theory, preparing for somebody for something terrible to happen to them, hopefully. And then they'll have the skills, you know, to improve it. So like that will drive me to, you know, to make my preparations to make them better, you know, because I know that exists out there. Right. You know, and that's just part of our world. Yeah. So yeah.
And that's exactly what you can access in jiu-jitsu, because you can access someone's killing me currently. Like within a simulated state, someone is killing me. and then you can go home and be like, wow, I'm really glad I didn't die today.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad to see my family.
Yeah.
And I think you have a young son,
yeah.
right?
Yep.
Yeah, well, congrats to you.
Thank you.
That's awesome. And so you can go home and be like, oh, this is my family. This is great. And every day you can tangle with death and your own mortality and
Yes.
like, this is real. This is hardship. This sucks. The workout can be this simulation of like, this sucks. The work, you sit down with the accountant, you're like, damn it, we need more people coming to this gym,
Yeah.
or maybe we need less, or maybe we need the right kind of people, whatever it is. That sucks. And then you can experience all the things that are so great when
Yeah.
you watch your students go and win a competition. And you're like,
Yeah.
wow, I'm doing something here, and that person is a different person than the guy who came in here in
Yeah.
the first place. And I think just experiencing the whole gamut is really
that's
what
true.
it's all about.
Yeah. And
We
then-
got to some good levels.
Thank
of this
you, man.
philosophy.
Thank you. Yeah,
That's
this is good
that's some
stuff.
cool stuff.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel like we could keep talking for a long time.
I
but-
could talk to you for hours.
Yeah.
I hope that next time I'm in Charleston, we'll do like a follow-up episode.
Yeah, for sure. That would be awesome.
And if you ever, find yourself at a place where we are, which I understand is rare because we kind of go all over the fucking place, we'll do something. Okay, so for the people who want to be able to find you online, where would they look? What's the handles and all that
It
stuff?
would be holycityjiujitsu.com would be our website, and so you would have all kinds of photographs and access to information on there. They'll give you information about the art and the instructors that we have here, and you can sign up for the gym also there too, and see our schedule there.
Perfect.
So that's you can get all the information there, and on our Instagram at Holy City Jiu Jitsu. Yeah. So
And
yeah, we're in
what's
Charleston.
your Instagram as well?
Oh, it's at tetsuro.sanda. So TETSURO.sanda. So that's my middle name, actually. I'm half Japanese. So.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I am going to snap some pictures before we take
Awesome.
off here. And everybody, as always, you can find those at T. Hickson Life and see more episodes. Follow along Strangers Worth Meeting. Thank you very much, Mike, for being on the show. It's been a total pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you to our sponsor, Track Farms, for the excellent CBD, which is amazing for the recovery if you're doing the hard workouts like we're talking about on the episode. And thanks, everybody, for listening. As always, we will see you on the next episode.